Okay, welcome everybody to our webinar. So this is part 2B. We're going to be taking you through Brella, the virtual event platform from an event manager's perspective. There are lots of things that we want to share with you and things to be thinking about when you're looking at virtual event platforms. So thanks so much for joining us for this really sort of informal chat. I'm pretty much going to hand the ball over to Luke, our marketing manager, who has really good experience with Brella. He pretty much set up the virtual event that you guys have all been given access to. So if you have questions as we're going through each section of the platform, please pop them into the chat box for me and we'll definitely get to them as we go along. All right, Luke, I am going to hand over to you. We'll just unmute Luke.
I was muted. You muted me.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, cool. You missed the best part. So yeah, look, basically, I'm not sure if everybody was here on Wednesday when we were going through Brella with Kimo, and he kind of gave us a great overview of the platform. But I guess we had questions about how we would use it as event managers, because obviously Brella and Kimo are a software company. And so to see it through the eyes of people who actually plan events is a very different kind of outlook onto the software. I guess before I start going through it, just a little bit of a background as to how this all came up. Obviously, venues to events, we are event managers as well, and we run corporate events, and we had a few of them on the books for 2020. And then when COVID hit overnight, like I'm sure most of you had, all of our revenue from event management disappeared. And so we kind of started thinking, how can we still maintain these events? How can we still deliver value for our clients and also make money, which is why we all work. And we kind of started thinking about, can we run it through Zoom? Is there a Google Meets kind of software that can really help? And every single platform that we looked at in terms of teleconferencing and all the video conferences had major limitations in how that would work for networking, to sell sponsorship, and to entice people to invest in the event itself. So we went out and we kind of explored platforms. And the one thing I really want to say at the start is we're not here trying to sell you Brella. There's a lot of virtual event platforms that you can use, and it's really about finding which one works best for you. The reason why we partnered with Brella is just because it is the one that we personally would use. So I'm going to share my screen with you all and just kind of step you through every single aspect of the platform, but how we would use it as event managers and how you can really use it to create value for your event. So can everyone see my screen, Kim? Yeah, all good. Give me a sec. So basically, we're inside Brella. So if anybody logged in on Wednesday, you'd be familiar with how it all looks. And Brella does have limitations. It's in terms of branding, there's limitations to what you can really do and how you can make it look your own, where you can place your logos and create like color palettes. But it is really simple and really intuitive for people to use. So I've just put up an example of some other platforms I found. And these kinds of things create like that virtual space, and as you can walk through an expo. For me personally, like it's interesting, but it kind of has it's a bit gimmicky from my perspective. I come from a marketing background, so I really try to think about that user experience, and I really try to think about what it is people are trying to achieve and what information people are trying to get from this event. And then when you think about your bandwidth, having everybody logging into a virtual event space and trying to navigate a whole virtual arena, it also does add layers of complexity. But that being said, this is why we chose Brella, not necessarily why you may choose some other options that exist. So for us in Brella, it's really simple. If you jumped in there, you can see there's not a lot of options, and the way it works is fairly straightforward. So I'm just going to kind of run you through each step and where I really think that the value that virtual events can bring lies. So if you have questions, like Kim said, chuck them in the chat. And after each section, we'll just kind of go through and answer them. This is fairly informal. I haven't got this scripted. I'm just talking stuff off the top of my head. So I really like to kind of get some feedback from everyone else as well. So the first tab you come to is the people tab. One thing that I had hopes for is that there would at least be a home landing page on Brella. At the moment, that doesn't actually exist as a landing page. You can create them in certain areas, like in this more tab. But again, it is a really simplified version of what we really need. And this people page is really where I see the greatest value out of these virtual events. And so you may have been familiar, you may have suggested meetings or tried to network with people. And one thing I keep thinking back to is one of our events that we had, we started trying to create and replicate the potential that this holds in person. So basically in here, you can kind of scroll through all of the people that are attending and you can categorize them based on how relevant of a match they are to you. So if you've gone into Brella, you notice that there's these matchmaking criteria at the start. And in that you select the things that you do. So Kim has an event management company. She'd love to chat to you about corporate events and coffee, obviously. And so you can kind of find people that really have similar interests and people that you would like to network with and simply suggest a meeting. And so here you can find a bit more about that person, a bit more about what they do. You can find their contact links, whether it's an email, whether it's their LinkedIn. And here you can see your own individual schedule. And in the back end, you can actually create meeting slots. And so you can set up times and suggest a meeting and find the people that you want to network with in a really easy way and then schedule time to chat to them. And then you can have a look at it, how it sits within the event schedule. So it may be you wanted to have a look at, marketing without budget, and then you're a bit hungry. So you thought maybe I'll check it and see if I can get a meeting time here. So it gives you that flexibility to really work around the whole schedule and create meetings where you want. And the really good thing about this is if you are running a virtual event or if you're running a hybrid event where you have both elements, this whole platform is available to people prior to the event starting. So where people can network at a face-to-face event only during the time of the event itself, in here you can have 2 weeks prior to your event where people can come on, they can start networking, they can start scheduling meetings, then they can attend your event, whether it's virtual or whether it is face-to-face. And really kind of, there's no time limitations into how you can network within this platform. So for me, thinking about some of the events that we run, it would be an amazing tool to implement across a face-to-face event as well, because that way, sponsors who want to meet influential people, they can find them and they can link up and they can network, plan meetings, and maybe even start to close business at the event itself. One thing we've got here is Kim and I, we've had our little virtual meeting. And the great thing here is you can click this chat box. And so what happens is it pops up and I've actually rescheduled a meeting with Kim. I've said, look, I'm not free that time. Can we reschedule? But now we have that opportunity to kind of have open dialogue. I can chat to Kim. We can arrange meetings. Again, I could reschedule a meeting and line it up for a different time and we can go back and forth, but we have that opportunity to really kind of dive into that networking, which is really the key for a lot of our events. I'm just going to go a little bit further on this as well. And I'm already sick of hearing my voice, so I apologize to everyone else. But,
Actually, can I jump in then?
Please do.
Awesome. While you are just talking about that point, where are you all? Let me see. I just wanted to, has anyone else been to AIM? The event expo? Yeah, cool. Everyone's nodding. Awesome. So you know how you go to AIM maybe as a hosted buyer and you get pre-selected meetings for you. So you put, when you're registering for AIM, you put down the things that you're interested in finding out more about or the things you're interested in purchasing while you're at AIM. And then behind the scenes, I don't know how it happens, but they sort of data match you with exhibitors that are relevant. So this is a really cool tool enabling us to be able to do this, but also the attendees to be able to see who else they match with and then make those connections. So it's not just sort of pre-scheduled meetings and as the attendee, you're just given a list of people that you have to meet with. You actually have control over this, or your guests will have control over this. So I think this is going to be really powerful in terms of, like Luke was saying, with those hybrid events, using something like this before your event so people can connect with one another, and also for your sponsors. This is going to be a massive selling point where your sponsors can really see who they have matches with and start those conversations prior. Luke mentioned, you know, we've done live events where you try and facilitate on-site meetings. And when you've got 500 people there, it really is a massive task to get the on-site meetings component correct, especially if you don't have software like this backing it up. So this can certainly help for our live events as well. All right, Luke, take it away.
Back to me. Cool. So from there, I'll tie that in a bit more about the sponsors as well, because this people tab really does work in favor of sponsors. And I guess one of the biggest obstacles that we had thought about when we're looking at moving some of our events into the digital space is how we obtain that value for the sponsors. And, you know, if you're sitting there, why would you want to spend your money to be in a virtual space? So here's just a number of sponsorships that we have just created for this event. And as you'll see there, all the presenters for the remainder of the webinar series as well. So this is where you can really categorize it into your major sponsors and really start to highlight different sponsorship packages and their significance. If you go into a sponsor page, let's let this play. As you'll see, Kim will start talking.
Hello, Melbourne. I am so excited.
So in this is kind of like your virtual booth. And the great thing about this is it really kind of, you can put everything in here that you would have on your physical stand. You know, you can have your videos, your ads, product demonstrations. You can have as many videos as you really want, explaining a bit about your business so people can come in here and explore it. You can add in company details, so a little bit about the company, their background. And I'll just pull it over to here. You can start chatting with the sponsors as well. So as an attendee, if you're interested in a sponsor's product or a service, you can start chatting with them and open that dialogue prior to the event, at the event, and even after the event. So it has like really powerful tools in terms of how you can interact, because the amount of times you're at an event and you go up to a sponsor booth and you want to chat to them, but there's 20 other people around, or you have limited time, this kind of takes away those restraints. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it replaces face-to-face interaction, but given that we're all stuck at home right now, it really does create the same opportunities that a face-to-face event creates in a virtual setting. Beyond that, you can kind of do cool things as well. So all your collateral you can put into here is all your flyers, your brochures. So this is Kim's presentation from 2 weeks ago. This is the Venues to Events Directory Partner Information Kit. So you can really start to load up all your product information, your sales kits, anything that you really wanted to include on a physical stand, you can then place in here. And I think this is the most powerful part, is you can see who the company representatives are. And from this trade booth, I guess you can start creating meetings. So you can chat to the individuals on that stand and start arranging meeting times, start networking. And so for a sponsor, there is absolute value in this, because you can engage with the attendees, with other sponsors, with speakers directly, and you can record it all. So I'm just going to flick across to the back end here really quickly. And the great thing is it's got all of this tracking. So everybody, what they're doing, you can monitor that. You can feed that information back into your sponsors as well. So you can have a look at your dashboard, looking at the attendees, the amount of meetings set, how many were accepted, the engagement. But as a sponsor, you can come into their tab and you can start to see exactly what's happening. So how many individual meetings they had, how many inquiries they had, the traffic analysis, who has come to their sponsor booth and who's really interested. And so in terms of your return on investment for a sponsor, it gives you that it gives you that data that you sometimes may not necessarily get out of face-to-face events. Sure, you track people, you get their business cards, and you can network on the scene, but this really gives it to you in numbers. It quantifies it. You can do it prior to the event, during the event, and it really keeps track of all the communication, so nothing ever gets lost. So that's a really cool tool for your sponsors. Moving on to further promotion, there's little things like sponsor ads you can put in. So in your people page, you can come down and you can have little ads and you can suggest a meeting. You can click through and find their representatives and go back to their trade booth. It's like I said, there are limitations. It's not the most obvious ad, but it kind of integrates in. It's just a little extra you can throw in.
I like that ad, Luke. I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah. I haven't really written it out too much, but you get the point. Do
you mind if I jump in just on the sponsorship stuff? And if anyone's got questions about this sponsorship module, please chuck them into the chat and we can absolutely answer them. Just thinking from my event management perspective, what I would be doing, say if you're using a virtual event platform and you're building your sponsorship packages, I'd be taking screenshots of all of these things, just showing your sponsors, this is what your virtual booth could look like. This is how you can add can you just go back to our sponsor page for me, Luke? Awesome, thanks. This is how you can add, all of your documents and your attachments. Sorry, I thought that was going to start playing and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be distracted. So your videos, which is another cool thing. So your sponsors can import their videos. They're going to start playing automatically. So if they have a really powerful video, you'll be able to capture people's attention. So getting back to what I was saying as an event manager, taking screenshots of this is what your virtual booth will look like. This is how you can make meetings with the other delegates. These are the kind of statistics that you're going to get. Screenshot that and put that into your sponsor document. Because what we need to be doing at the moment is really educating our sponsors and potential sponsors how virtual events are still going to provide return on investment for them, because a lot of people don't know how it's going to happen. They're all turning to us to say, hey, how do we do this? Do I still sponsor? Am I going to get, to meet people? And a lot of the time we're going, oh my goodness, I don't know, because we haven't done this before. So use as much data as you can from the virtual platform in terms of screenshotting, and if they've got images that they can send you to be putting into your sponsor documents is just going to help you so much in terms of really pushing the value that they will get from it. All right, Luke, you were going to go into the schedule. I don't think anyone's got any questions at the moment. Okay, rock and roll.
Cool. And so if you were here on Wednesday, we opened up Brella a bit and you could jump in and explore it. And the way we'd set it up was unusual because we were streaming both in Brella and we were streaming in Zoom at the same time. So it kind of limited the way that it functioned. And I guess due to that, there was some kind of growing pains. It didn't work exactly how it's intended to work. And so the idea is that obviously if you're running an event through Brella, you wouldn't also open it somewhere else. So this is an example of a schedule that I've pulled together just as a mock example to show you how it can actually work and how these elements tie in. I know on Wednesday, everybody watched it through the stream tab, but I'm just going to run you through this really quickly. So here is our schedule. So this kind of outlines all it's your standard schedule. This is what you put into your conference booklet. It's how the whole thing would run. But the great thing about doing it here in Brella is you can really kind of set out the key markers and really kind of theme things in a way that's really easy to find. So for instance, if I'm looking for, I created a stream here called Event Management Stream. And so as we kind of come through our keynotes, we'll come to a morning tea and then we start to have breakout sessions. And here we'll have 2 streams running concurrently and people can choose which one they want to attend, just like any other event. And the way we've done it in the past a lot is you have your various streams. So one stream is your event management stream, one is your marketing for events. Now, if I'm really interested in the event management side, I can just click the tab and see, oh, here are all the sessions linked to the theme that I'm really interested in. And then you can start to like those and start creating your own event plan, I guess. And then the great thing is we watched it all through the stream on Wednesday because we only had the one session running. So here what you can do is if you go into your stream, you can watch the presentation within your schedule itself. So you can click in here, you can see a bit about the speakers, and this is where it's really good, is that you can also add in your sponsorship information. So you can have sponsors sponsoring a specific session where you can have their information. It can link through to their sponsor booth. It can link to their website, contact information. Maybe they want to embed some things in here, whether it's their logos or it's their videos. And so this is just another way that you can use this to run multiple streams at the same time. So if you're interested in one, you can watch it in the schedule, and then you can kind of build your whole profile around it. Like, what is it that I wanted to do? The cool thing here is when you have a meeting scheduled, like I have with Kim, it ties it into your schedule itself. So it will show you when your meeting is, if you need to reschedule it, when it needs to move, and then you can just see what your meetings are, and you can see what your networking availability is. And it really simplifies the whole process of going through this. And what this does is really just create what you put in your conference booklet right here. So you have your schedule, you have all your speaker information. You can break it out by rooms. So you can have your main stage, your plenary, and this is everything that's running in the plenary. You can have just your breakouts, and these are all the breakout stages. And you can really start to be creative in how you want to divide and label and categorize and sort all this information. But it is all here, and it's all easy to obtain. And the great thing is it's also available on your phone. So if you have the Brella app, everything that we're looking at right now is going to be everything we're looking at. You can turn around and open on your phone. And so in terms of things like sponsorship, this is just another opportunity where you can add in like your roll-in slideshow of your sponsors, and you can put in your presentation information, you can put in your networking information. You can add so many different elements to this to really break up your event however you want to see it. And that ability to have the different streams running concurrently is huge, because that's how we run most of our events. They always break out into streams after your morning tea, finishing at afternoon tea. And it just gives you that ability to have really curated content that people are interested in, and still kind of build that willingness of the people to participate and be involved. Because I think, like Kimo said, if it's all pre-recorded and it's just sitting there for you to watch on demand, you're competing with so many other things. But if the content that you're providing is limited and there's a time frame to it, it really encourages that engagement and gets people into the platform. Looking at like meeting availability, you can set your availability as you want. So you can say, I'm available on Friday for meetings. And then if you come to your own networking availability, you can just turn off sessions if you don't want to do them, if you're available or not. And so you have complete freedom as to how you attend this event within Brella, which is really cool, and saves a lot of time. Even if you're doing a hybrid event, I mean, I know from the marketing perspective, the amount of time that goes into creating a conference booklet, working up your floor plans and your schedules and designing them out, the printing costs associated with it. And, they're fantastic tools, don't get me wrong. It's definitely required for an event, but so many people just throw them out or don't use them. And here, if it's a hybrid event, you can build it all into this platform, have it as a phone app, and it still contains all the information you need. And
the really cool thing there too, sorry, Luke, to jump in. The really cool thing is that people can actually have power in creating their own schedule. So like Luke was showing, you've got your main schedule, what's happening on the stage, but then you can integrate your meetings and things that you're really interested in. I know that on previous conferences that we've managed, people have spent thousands upon thousands on event apps that will tailor people's schedule based on what they're interested in seeing. And I mean, you've got this in a web version as well as an app on your phone. So that's the really powerful thing about the scheduling side as well. Luke, we also have a question from Margaret. She's asked, is there a limit on the number of concurrent streams we can add in Brella?
That's a good question. As far as I can see, there really isn't. It's about creating the streams. And then the biggest problem that you'd face is managing them, which is where you'd get an AV company to manage your stream inside of it. Brella, obviously, in terms of their pricing, it's a scalable pricing scale. So, you know, I would have to double check with them where their pricing limitations are. But in terms of the amount of streams you can put in there, it really is just because you're using an external streaming software. You can just add them in as many as you want. So it's fairly flexible to adapt to your event.
Awesome. Yeah, we will definitely find out. As far as I know, it's kind of unlimited, but I guess as the event manager, obviously you think about a live event, you don't really want to be managing, you know, a whole bunch of streams either. And you've also got to make sure, probably talking to your AV company, that you've then got the bandwidth to be, you know, live streaming from different streams as well, if you're doing, you know, a fair few of them. Byron's got a question, Luke, too. Are there options to create a meeting for multiple people?
Yes, I believe there is. So in terms of creating meetings, you can schedule what they call tables and have multiple people at tables. I haven't set them up in this program in this event itself, but there is the option to create group meetings for your networking as well. So that's not a problem.
Yeah, that could be a really cool sponsor inclusion in the packages, to talk about the fact that they can hold group meetings, and maybe they have like a roundtable discussion that 10 people could join during the sessions. So there's probably a fair bit of power in the networking. I mean, you think about in-person conferences, say for example the sponsors wanted to break out and have maybe 10 people at each sponsor booth. Maybe the logistics of that are a little bit crazy, or you have to hire some extra meeting rooms. You could absolutely facilitate this within the software and then launch that into the program, so people can then, you know, self-select into those meetings. We've got a question from Kay. Hi, Mum. Nice to see you on the line. Of course, you're here. Are the streams recorded so you can attend one and watch later? Yeah, absolutely. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically you as the event manager have power over that, and depending on what platform you're using. So say, for example, you're using Zoom. So you have multiple Zooms going on. You as the event manager can record that and then distribute it later on. Is that right, Luke?
Yeah, 100%. So you can record all of the sessions and then make them available later. And it really just does depend, like Kim said, on the video conferencing software that you're using. So the great way to think of Brella is it's kind of an empty shell, and you fill it with everything that you need, which gives you great flexibility. And the one thing that I think about, especially in terms of video conferencing, is obviously we think of Zoom, you think of your Google Meets, but I know me personally, if I'm running an event, I don't want to be managing the AV side of it. I don't want to have to, I don't want to be concerned on whether or not my Zoom link is going to work. So that's where I would think about getting an AV company, and they may use a program like Vimeo, or they may run it off their own broadcasting platform, which is you're able to do in Brella, which I think is what gives it that flexibility to really work for any event. But in short, yes, you can record it.
Awesome. What we might do, I can see there are a couple of other questions, but Luke, we might just get you to finish the content just in case people do need to jump off. And then of course, for those who want to stay on the line, we can absolutely answer those questions for you. So if you have a question pop up, put it into the chat. I'll let Luke cover the content, and it might actually bring up some more questions. We'll stay on the line and answer them all. All right, Luke.
Yeah, cool. So in all honesty, I think from my perspective, the people and the schedule and the networking is really what this brings to events, especially now. So we watched on Wednesday the presentation through the stream tab. And so the way this works different to the schedule is if you're in the schedule and you click a session, you can watch that presentation within the schedule. But once that session ends, that broadcast ends, you'd have to leave that event and then choose the next session that you wanted to attend. Say, for instance, in the morning, it's all in the plenary. You just want to sit there and watch one stream. You click on the stream tab and you can just tune into the plenary stage or the breakout stage or whatever it happens to be, and then watch each presentation one after another. And that's kind of how those two tabs separate each other in how they present the information. So it's a really cool thing. So if it is just a single event with one stage. There's no breakouts. You can sit there all day and just have it stream in and participate. But if you really wanted to pick and choose, there's those options as well. For your speakers, again, I think about your conference collateral, making a conference book, getting your speaker images and the bios. In here, you can do it all. Within this session, you can see that their bio. But the really cool thing is once you click more information about a speaker, you can see every presentation they have. So if you click on Kim, for instance, because I've built her into absolutely everything here, you can see all the sessions that she's available in. So if you're really interested in what Kim has to say, you can build your schedule and start favoriting things around a certain speaker, which is really handy. And then you can find out more about them. And then the great thing is, and something that doesn't happen a lot at conferences, is you can then go interact with the speakers that you've seen. So if you really like what they've said, instead of trying to chase them down at the end of their presentation when they're trying to get off to lunch, you can just chat to them here and try to schedule a meeting. And it gives you access to the speakers that a lot of events don't really have, which is a really cool function. And then finally coming into this more page. So this is just a custom page that you can really kind of put anything in. So I've just created some examples here. This would be a good spot to put in like your instructions and how-tos. So how to create meetings, and it can create a pop-up or it can open in a new window. It's a really good option to put in things like your FAQs and how to answer any questions that people may have that come up in an event. Things like for a hybrid event, the Wi-Fi password. I can't tell you how many times people ask us for the Wi-Fi password. We always put it into our conference books and at the top of every page, but it's one of the biggest questions you get. Where to park. You can include your parking maps. You can do so much. You can link it direct to people's websites. So that could be another sponsor opportunity. It could be a way to promote your own business. And you can really kind of build this out to do whatever you want it to do. But one of the coolest things here is these announcements. So I'll just show you how to make them. It's super easy. Bear with me, my Zoom controls are over where I'm trying to get to. So up here, I can come to my communications, and in the back end, I can send reminder emails about the event. I can manage all of my communications within Brella, and it all ties them back into this platform. So it's kind of self-contained. But the announcements are really cool because in here, I can just quickly create announcements that gets sent out to everybody in the software or on the app. So it could be, the next session is about to start and you want it to go out immediately, and you can type in any content you want and say, okay, I need to put in content and save it. And then that will get pushed out. And so on my phone, it's popped up on here saying the next session is about to start. So if you're at an actual event and you're just at lunch, it lets you know, hey, this is about to begin. If you're at home and maybe you've gone off to make a coffee and you're reading a book or whatever it happens to be, it gives you that ability to really engage with your audience quickly, promptly, and just communicate with everybody in an instantaneous way through their phone, through their computer. And it's a really amazing tool. And you can think about how you could use that for additional sponsor value if they wanted to push that out. And before, I know I'm kind of gone over a bit, but just going into the back end, just kind of showing you some things like your matchmaking and how simple it is to create all of the categories that you want. So this is stuff that Kim actually made, and she'll, category, I plan conferences, interests, and you can just kind of select it, create it, customize it to suit your event and your customers. And it is really simple in terms of creating the categories that you want for your networking and for your event. And it, again, integrates through with so many other platforms, whether it's your Zooms, your Salesforce, and it's a really, really useful tool. So just to harp back on, I'm not saying you have to go out and use Brella, but I know that our industry has just been demolished by coronavirus. And one thing that Kim and I always talk about is, we don't know when it's going to end. We don't know how the industry will look once it is over. So there's definitely going to have to be some kind of pivot and some change into the way that we run our business. And obviously being in the event industry, especially here in Melbourne, it's hard to see. We talk to our to our partners and we talk to so many people that are really struggling. So the whole idea of this is really just to try show people that there are opportunities and there are ways that we can still deliver the same value and deliver the same content in a really simple way that still creates that meaningful value into our industry. So I'll let Kim take over from here. I've spoken enough.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. I hope that's provided you guys with a little more insight into virtual event platforms and what we think of as the event manager and the marketing brain when we see this kind of stuff. What I would love before we launch into questions, if anybody would like to give us a little bit of feedback on today, did you think this session was valuable? If you could just type it into the chat or feel free to drop me an email. What I'd really love to do is just grab a couple of testimonials so we can help promote this session and help as many people with their hybrid events as we can. So if you've got a little comment for us about this session, that would be amazing. Moving on to another question we have, Luke, from Margaret. So with a hybrid event, someone can sit in one room and watch a stream from another room.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. I don't know how well they'll be paying attention to either of those sessions. But yeah, absolutely. It gives you complete flexibility in how people attend an event, which is something that you don't really see, and it has great value. I think we often are looking at creating event apps for our events to try help people engage in a new way. And even it's important to think, if you have this as a platform in your hybrid event, on your phone, you can start Q&A and polling and interacting with your speakers in the sessions on the spot. So it's really handy, and yeah, you could watch multiple sessions all at once.
Perfect. I hope we answered that question for you. Anyone else got any other questions you'd like to ask us while you've got us? No. All right. I will leave it for a couple more minutes. Is anybody, hang on, how do I unmute you all?
I guess one thing that would be interesting for us to know is I guess how everything has affected you all individually. Kim and I have been speaking to people, and we've kind of just been 15-minute conversations with some of our database, just who are really struggling, trying to figure out how their business is going to survive, or what they can do with their current events at work or any of their marketing activities. So Kim and I, not that we know all the answers, but sometimes we've found that it really helps to kind of just sit there and get different perspectives. So it's always interesting to see what everybody else is kind of faced with at the moment, and if there are any examples within your own work on how you have coped with what's happening with the coronavirus and how it's really affected your events. Once Kim figures out how to unmute you all.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I've figured it out. You can unmute yourself. So if anyone wants to jump in and just, give us a bit of background and let us know what's going on in your world. And then we'll also send out the recording, of course, after this. Alrighty. Has everyone gone silent? Or can you not unmute yourselves? Byron, can I unmute you? Tell us a little bit about your podcast and what you've been up to.
Yes, I'm an event freelancer, so my work about a week after the restrictions were put together. So I lost my freelancing job there, and so far I've been basically wanting to upskill in various parts of maybe that are not so much my strengths. So looking at project management, digital marketing, looking at all the different online courses that I could do to start to upskill for when we're back. So I've decided to create a podcast called Journey Undiscovered, and I'm launching it on the 4th of August. And right now I'm in the editing phase of the first 3 or 4 podcasts. But the podcast is about is interviews with event managers and also creative artists who all have a touch point to the event industry. Kim is one of them that I've interviewed, along with, I think I've done now 12 or 13 episodes. So they'll be coming out on a fortnightly basis. So we talk to them about, their untold story, why they got into the events game, why they do what they do, why they fell in love with it. And then they tell us about some of the things that has given them success, and how they've been able to adapt to different challenges along the way, and to give some insights into why they're successful in what they do. So that's taken a lot of time in terms of doing projects, but because we don't have a firm end date on when things are going to go back, this is why I'm here to learn more about how we could do hybrid events and potentially virtual events as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear your podcast. It's a really, really cool idea. And I guess it's probably nice to have something to be focusing on at the moment. And so true. Like, I think if we can all, as event managers, be using this time to research hybrid events, gosh, you hear that word so often, don't you? And research virtual events, all the better, because I think they're definitely here for a little while. Jane, thank you very much. She's gone off to attend another meeting. No worries. Who else have we got on the line? Diane, have you got too much background noise there to tell us a little bit about yourself?
No, we're okay at the moment. You had my colleague Lucy on Wednesday. She came to the Wednesday one.
Yep.
And she's not in today, so I'm here. So I didn't get the full picture before, but it looks really good to me. I work at the University of Melbourne, and so we're to some extent buffered from the immediate effects of events, but what it means for most of our team is that we're redirected into either completely different or slightly related areas within our bigger external relations comms team. But that will have a finite lifetime. Potentially will be restructured, and that will have effects on who's in and who's out of this field, probably in the next week or so. The universities are getting to the point where they cannot maintain their current stance. They're going to have to make changes that impacted on a lot of you much earlier. So we're just sitting tight to see what that means for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we have pivoted, to use another very popular word, into an awful lot of supporting people across the university to run their events as virtual events, and advising them and directing them off into areas like yours for advice and to look at other ways of doing things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I personally used to work at Monash University in a marketing and events capacity, and when I was thinking about these virtual events, a lot of my thoughts actually went back to how they could potentially implement that, because I know the range of events that universities hold are so broad, and they're so people intensive as well. And with like the budget cuts that are happening across the university sector at the moment, it's going to be really challenging. It's a really scary time. I mean, obviously it's a scary time for everybody, but yeah, I mean, I just think about the international events that they hold, especially, a Melbourne University, as you were saying, international students and communication, training, and education. It's so broad in terms of what universities do in terms of events that a lot of people don't really think about. So hopefully, at least all this information might have helped kind of give you some ideas as to some things you can do. But yeah, if you ever need to chat about any ideas beyond that, Kim and I always try and make ourselves available just to sit down for 15-20 minutes and see if there's any ideas that we can help out with.
I think that's good. I think we are unlikely to go back to the way we used to run a lot of things. So a lot of public lectures and that sort of thing, I would be very surprised if we had half of that going back to face-to-face. A lot of it will be virtual. So I expect there'll be a lot more interest as time goes on with people actually making decisions about how we run a public lecture. We're not actually ever going to do it face-to-face, or a subset of our public events will be done face-to-face because you cannot capture it the same experience. But there'll be a lot of things where we can just reach so many more people this way.
Yeah.
And it opens us up to being able to reach a more diverse group of people. So I think we got a little bit of a kickstart in the direction we should have been going in.
Yeah, that's one way to think of it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Diane, and thanks for joining us. I can't wait actually to hear our last webinar from Scene Change about all of the AV side of things for virtual events. I think that's going to be really interesting. All right, Margaret, hi. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world?
Well, my associations, one of my association has been doing this for a while, the hybrid thing with full-day workshops. A lot of the people that I have in my association are in regional areas and actually can't get to workshops. So this has been really great, getting them used to that, being able to join in from afar. And I did a workshop, not a workshop, we did a 3-hour mini conference last week for a conference that was supposed to be held in Vienna. I was supposed to be in Vienna last week. So they pivoted to a 3-hour mini conference, and we went free, and we had over 1,800 people register. It was awesome. So that's 1,800 people. Well, probably not the whole lot, but probably around half of those that have never been involved with us at all. So that's more people on our list now. And just looking at the feedback, a lot of them were saying they would have loved to have attended the conference, but they wouldn't have been able to anyway because of money. And they thought it was a really great idea. And they, even though they all hated COVID, they thought that it was actually pushing us into a better space. So it wasn't all about attending when you haven't got the money to attend. And I think with the way it's all going now with the unis losing money, they're losing funding, I'd say a lot of people that come to my conferences, academics and students, they're just not going to have the funds to be able to attend in person. So we're going to have to go hybrid, proper hybrid. So, but then that, as usual, leaves everything up to the poor PCO to figure out how to go hybrid and how it's not going to cost the associations a fortune to do it.
Yeah.
That's is the money, so, this looks great, but how much is it going to cost?
Absolutely. It's actually a really good point you make about people attending conferences. So moving forward, maybe, lots of businesses aren't going to have that money to put people on flights, to put them up in hotels, yet they still have the time, and then maybe they can attend our conferences virtually. So yeah, it's a really interesting way
of. A lot of them said, I haven't been able to attend a conference for 3 years since I had my little one.
Yes.
So can't fly, and nobody wants to fly to Australia, which is a pain. The Europeans and the US, the UK, they're quite happy doing conferencing in Europe, but coming to Australia is a bit of a stretch for a lot of them. But they expect us to fly there, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing a bit about what's going on. It'd be very interesting to have a chat with you and see what the feedback is, a few months down the track as well. And we've also got Neil on the line.
Yeah, hi Kim, hi everyone. Interesting the way things are panning out for me. Obviously, like everyone in the event industry, over the last few months, everyone sort of got onto Zoom, and then there was this amazing sort of a flurry of activity, but clients all expected everything practically for free. So on one hand, we're sort of coming out of this situation where a lot of speakers and a lot of things were done for so-called free. And there's this sort of confidence thing going forward that a lot of my event managers are a bit scared. There's a bit of a hump between, do we just push everything into next year and just don't worry about this year, just write it off, or do we take a risk, or what's perceived to be a slightly more risky point of changing the physical event into a virtual event? So that's what I'm kind of grappling with at the moment, and I'm getting, there's a few starting to move in that direction, but I think it's this sort of idea of fear. And I think a lot of event managers kind of underestimating how good they are and how not so difficult it is to move from putting on a physical event, which they're all fantastic at, but to do it virtually, it seems like there's this perceived bigger chasm than I think there really is. So I'm trying to lead them across that chasm. And the third point is talking about hybrids, is that there's rapidly becoming a perception that when we do get to the hybrid scenario, that it's actually going to cost more. And I think it might well be, if you intend on putting the virtual event on like you always have, but add an extra level of high production value and then try and mesh the physical and the virtual, so maybe those two audiences have an opportunity, that it is going to probably cost more than it would be if you just did the physical or you just did the virtual. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, interesting. And Neil, you're with ICMI.
Yeah, that's one of the hats I wear, but because that hat's not generating a lot of income at the moment. So I'm rapidly moving into the virtual and hybrid consulting space, because there's not a lot going on for in the speaking world at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. I know I was thinking about you guys when all of this happened, and obviously all of the speakers out there, like, bang, everything, well, same for us, everything just got cancelled. So
indeed.
Yeah.
So thanks for putting on this series. That's really good, Kim and Luke. So well done, and getting involved with Brella. I was fascinated to see that platform because it's one I hadn't seen. I've looked at a few of the platforms, but yeah, it looks like a fairly robust platform, which is always good. I think that's the big challenge, is the confidence and the robustness of the platform that you pick, because there's nothing worse than when everything just goes dead. And if you don't have that support in real time somehow backing you up, no one likes to look at a blank screen. So
Neil, if I can, I just in terms of what you're saying about Brella, it is a really simple application and software to use. And coming from a marketing perspective, obviously you start thinking about user experience and how time poor everyone is, and everybody just wants the information to be able to be found easily and presented to them. Talking about cost, you're 100% right when you discuss the added level of cost with a hybrid event and a face-to-face. One of the things that I guess really drew us into Brella is they're relatively cheap compared to a lot of the other virtual event platforms we looked at. As I've mentioned, we always look at producing an event app. Brella essentially is around the same price point as an event app as well. So given that it can replace that, if apps and things like that were elements that you were incorporating into your events anyway, the hope is that it really wouldn't add too much added cost onto your event anyway. Obviously, as you scale it up, costs increase, but I mean, that goes without saying. So you're dead right. The possibility of hybrids has the potential to increase costs, but there are platforms like this which I think really help to navigate that cost and replace so many different elements that would save you that money back. And then, as you were talking about the fear of events and whether they cancel it, put it next year, or try to go ahead, it is a real concern, and it's something that we considered a lot with our own events. And the one thing that we keep thinking about is, you're right, dead right, there is fear, and it's the fear of the unknown. But and it's not applicable to every event, but if you have an event when everybody else's is cancelled and you have somebody who pushes forward with an event in the virtual space, it really starts to set that tone as an industry leader, and it really helps you to get that branding out, that message, and out at a time when nobody else is doing it. So although I understand, and it's not an easy decision and it's event dependent, there are definitely some major advantages to taking that risk and putting your name out there at a time when everybody is afraid. And it really helps to set that charge and push you as industry leaders. So the points you made are spot on. It's a tough time and no one knows what's happening. But
look, I've got one client that was that risk adverse. They decided to basically to pre-record the whole conference. I've done a few virtual awards nights where you can pre-record big slabs of it and then just have a live MC who basically does like a news broadcast, just cuts to the various staff members, say, who are being nominated for award and already have their acceptance speech, but try and cut to their live acceptance speech. But if it falls over, they've got something in the can to play. Well, I've got one client who literally wants to do the whole conference, the keynote speakers, pre-recorded Q&As, so that the only thing that's running live is just the host presenter, and basically they're switching to pre-record. So it's basically a live broadcast program with an MC up front. So they've kind of taken it to the least level of risk in their mind, and I'm trying to get them to say, well, let's just try and do the Q&A live, not pre-recorded. Let's try and do something that's a little bit more spontaneous. Otherwise, I think it becomes very difficult to get that connection with the audience and that sort of live feel that you're not just watching a pre-recorded TV program or a documentary. So I guess these are the challenges.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. It does take away that connection. And I think in 2 weeks' time, we're chatting with Scene Change about all their AV. And this is 100% where for a normal event, you wouldn't manage the AV. So as an event manager, you wouldn't do it for a virtual event, and bringing in those experts to take over that whole AV side and the whole IT side would help so much. And it really, as you've said, reducing that risk for them because of, I guess, the perception of risk online, you can really mitigate that through the same suppliers that you use. And every event supplier is really trying to shift now as well. Even if you think about your conference bags, one of our suppliers who does merch, they're now creating satchels and they're delivering it to attendees at their homes. Yeah. So everybody is changing, and there are always going to be solutions. So like your mindset seems 100% like it's in the right direction. But like you said, it's not about convincing yourself. It's about convincing everybody else.
Exactly. And I think taking clients into a professional studio is a great way to go, because the guys in the studio do it day in, day out. They've got bulletproof equipment. They've got a decent 100 megabit link with a backup link to the internet. So you can reduce your risk massively, I think, by just picking a good quality. Doesn't have to be a big studio, but just has to have guys that know how to do live broadcasts, because that's all you're really doing. You're just producing a live broadcast. And you get all the nice slick and the intro music, and you can do a background and a set, and you can spend 5,000, 10,000 or 50,000, depending on how slick you want the thing to look. If you want to look like the Academy Awards, you're going to spend north of 50. If you want it to look like something that's acceptable, it might be 10. And so it's just getting clients' head around that AV cost or that production cost, which, coming away from Zoom, which everyone perceives as nothing, is at the moment a little bit of a heavy lift to get them up over that hump.
Exactly.
So
yeah, spot on.
Awesome. Hello, this is Isla, everybody. Dad's had to go back to work. The juggle. Oh my goodness. Hey, you on the computer, bub? Is that cool? Perfect. Well, thank you so much, guys. We've taken you right through to 3 o'clock. I really value your time and it's okay. She's saying hello. Yeah, value your time. And of course, if you've got any more questions, feel free to chat to us. There's one more comment. Since virtual events reduce the spend from venues and caterers, what do you see are the largest costs that will replace the physical event? Oh, AV. Yeah, Margaret's got AV. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if AV is actually going to come out at a similar price for virtual events as live events. I mean, it's always a component that we spend a fair bit of money on. You know, you'll save things on travel probably for your speakers, if you're, you know, live streaming them in, but you might be bringing them into a studio setting as well, which I think will happen a lot. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
One thing I think that could really change is, although you are saving money from your venues and caterers, is you could potentially reinvest that money into the speakers themselves. So I think you'll see a lot of people really finding that content and the speakers they bring in as the key thing that lures the attendees to your event. So you would imagine that there would be a greater investment in the speakers. And that's probably where I see the greatest spend. Because end of the day, a physical event, there's other elements to it that really bring people to it. But to be able to have somebody sit here in their own home when they have Netflix and a PlayStation and kids running around and want to engage, the people that you have presenting will be key. And I think that's where most of that money will probably end up being reinvested.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. The content is going to be the one thing that draws people in. And it's interesting what you were saying, Neil, too, about all of that sort of pre-recorded content. I think the more we can do live and live stream it, and maybe don't record some of the sessions for virtual events, to get people in front of their computers and really tuning in and interacting with us. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, guys. Well, I was wrapping up before. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, quite a few of the speakers have really embraced setting up their own home studios, which are now, they've moved from just the webcam on their laptop to a Logitech camera on top of their screen to a full screen with lighting and decent sound. And the keynote speakers and the MCs that have moved to that level are now really understanding and have really embraced it. Some don't do well in that tech environment at all. Some do tremendously well. And if I was engaging any speaker or any MC for a gig, I'd want to see what their home setup was like. You know, show me what you've done before, have a look at some pre-recorded footage of things they've done. Because if they're just sitting in their lounge room with, you know, a standard bookcase and they're using their laptop camera, the audio is not going to come across sharp and clean. The background's going to look odd. I mean, even, you know, like I've got this little thing that just softens my background, so it's actually not a virtual. This really is my my kitchen. So you can tell pretty quickly if the guys have really embraced the technologies or running 2 or 3 cameras. And some of the guys like, you know, Matt Church have really gone out, and Amanda Stevens, there's quite a few that have really just embraced it, and they're very slick out of their home office and probably just as good as actually going into a studio. So there's just going to be this whole graduation of people who have taken it on board and those that are just kind of resisting it and hoping to guide everything will go back to normal. Well, I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon, certainly not in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. No, that's really good points you make about the speakers. I think where the struggle for us as event managers and PCOs is going to be for our speakers who are presenting papers and who have, you know, answered the call for abstracts. So they're not professional speakers. How do we get them to set up that, you know, studio environment and still be able to get them to speak without the support of the AV team and the AV checks and stuff like that? So
they definitely need some coaching.
Yeah,
I can see that becoming a thing very quickly. The professional guys will be fine because they know they have to make a living. But as you rightly point out, just the people that present a few times a year, maybe they're industry specialists or whatever, people are going to get very sick of wanting to see them with a blank white wall behind them and very low production values. And, you know, they won't look at camera. They'll fumble with sort of just the way they present. The lighting's bad. You really have to hold their hand and run them through a checklist and almost give them a little, you know, 1-hour training course before you let them go live into a big conference with, you know, 50 or 100 or 500 people, because otherwise it'll just really unprofessional and they'll be uncomfortable as well. So it's a whole new thing.
it is. We're all learning new things.
I need some new things because the old things aren't working too well.
Yeah, well, you know, same here, but hey, we're all trying different things. But thank you so much, guys, for joining in. I probably do have to go and take over the child minding. the things you do in between trying to work at home. I'm sure all of you are, you know, doing a bit of a juggle. So thanks so much again. And we so very much look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday for number 3 in the series. All right, catch ya.
See ya.